only one of the top 5 players in the shooting guard position is going to be a one option on a championship team, and he is ranked number 5. So let's be honest, this position is pretty overrated because none of the best shooting guards are number 1 options on championship level teams, and if they are a number 1 option on a good team, they get bounced out the first round. So it is weird ranking this position for me because you have to look at it from a perspective of who's the best co-star to a superstar and not who's the best superstar. So with that being said, I'm going to start the list with Devin Booker, who is becoming overrated, but for some reason I ranked him at 1. Probably because he is the best shooting guard in the league or something like that. I don't know. Crazy what happens when a player goes from being a pretty good 1 option and turns into an elite 2 option. Life is only going to continue to get easier for Devin Booker since Kevin Durant is the 1 option now, and as soon as the Suns and Booker realize that, the sooner they will be an actual contender. But like I said before, I'm taking a 1-year sabbatical from my Suns fandom, so hopefully the Suns front office and team didn't hear that. Congrats on being number 1, D-Book. Too bad you're number 1 at the worst position in the NBA. Y'all are going to be really mad after this, but I'm ranking Paul George at number 2 despite me believing he is better than Booker. Now, I know it's weird to have him ahead of Mitchell, but not over Booker, but it is because of the reliability aspect. If PG is fully healthy, I'm honestly taking him over Booker. Don't at me. I personally believe that PG is an elite two-way player who gets more and more underrated every year. Yes, I know injuries factor into that, but did you forget that 2 years ago this man almost beat the Booker-led Suns in the conference finals? Without Kawhi, he had a worse supporting cast and was the definitive 1 option. Long story short, if we get a healthy PG next year, he will prove he is the best shooting guard in the NBA. Donovan Mitchell is going to go down in the history books as the next Chris Paul. An unlucky superstar who can't win a ring but always makes his team better in the regular season. And then their teams miraculously choke in the playoffs for some strange and unapparent reason. I do love watching Mitchell play, and I think he and Booker are closer than people believe. Still, Booker played like a demigod in the playoffs and has had more playoff success than Mitchell. So that is why I rank them in this order. Again, Booker and Mitchell are closer than people are making it seem, but I like PG even with health concerns more than Mitchell, so that is why Mitchell is at 3 and not 2. Kyrie Irving is easily the most offensively skilled shooting guard in the NBA, and if you have an argument to that, you are delusional. The narrative around Kyrie makes him seem like a worse basketball player than he actually is. I get it, problematic player, but he stands up for what he believes in and feels mistreated. He is the most misunderstood man in the NBA and becoming one of the most underrated players in the league as well. Have you forgotten that he is a magician when it comes to dribbling and is an elite scorer? The Mavericks missing the playoffs last year was not on him. And when they have a great year next season, I hope you don't hop on the bandwagon and move him from outside the top 5 to 3 next year. So I know it might be a little high, but Anthony Edwards is number 5 on my list. He's just got a certain mentality and a funny spirit about him that reminds me of someone else. Now, is he going to be on MJ's level? But I love how he wants to play both ends of the floor, plays for the big moment, can take control of a game, and most importantly, talks his Yeah, I just really like Anthony Edwards. I could be overrating him, but I feel like a lot of people would have him in their top 5 if they're talking about top 5 shooting guards. And I have him 5th, and I think he'll be top 3 next year. That's my opinion, though. Call me crazy, but is Zach LaVine the most underrated shooting guard in the NBA? I think the Bulls team being underwhelming and simply put, a bad team, makes the NBA devalue LaVine as a player. Please keep in mind that LaVine is still 28 years old. 28. I don't think he has peaked yet, and he should be hitting the beginning of his prime by next year. He has averaged 25, 5, and 5 in his last 5 seasons and hasn't hit his prime yet. Think about that. He also probably has the worst supporting cast of any of my top 5 shooting guards. I hope he gets traded, and if so, he could jump into the top 5 as a consensus 5. Yeah, Jaylen Brown might be too low, but I can't confidently say that he's undoubtedly better than the 6 players ahead of him. We all know he has an issue with self creation, dribbling. So I'm going to get to my biggest reason for his ranking. My biggest reason for having him at 7 and not higher is because every player ahead of him seems to want to play for the big moment, and despite losing, they do whatever they can to get the job done. Jaylen Brown can become non existent in games, especially really meaningful games, so I personally can't rank him over the top 5, and I think Levine might be better than Brown. So that is why Jaylen Brown is at 7. Zach Levine is the only player ahead of Jaylen Brown that I really would say, yeah, you could take Jaylen Brown over him and I wouldn't have a problem. But I'd take Anthony Edwards, I'd take Paul George, I'd take Donovan Mitchell, I'd take Kyrie, and I'd take Devin Booker over Jaylen Brown. So yeah, he falls to 7. I'm sorry if that offends you. Great player, but he honestly cannot create anything for himself, and a lot of his success comes from the team he plays with. Sorry, that is just the truth. And this brings me to Bradley Beal. Beal is very inefficient as a one option, but he's going to get more hype over this next year due to his new situation. I personally couldn't rank him any higher because he just hasn't produced while being the number 1, and he is not good on defense. After next year, I think he will be considered a point guard, but for now, he is a shooting guard, and he is number 8 out of 10 on this shooting guards list. But I will say, Bradley Beal is starting to become very underrated. Now, I might be underrating him in this list, but I think he is a very, very good NBA player. Just not a very good one option, and kind of not really a great 2 option. So, being a 3 option for the Suns going to make him look a lot better than he actually is. So, he's going to go from very underrated to very overrated very soon. After 8, we take a step back and enter a whole new tier as the shooting guard position isn't very deep. So at 9, we got a guy who is going to look like a top 5 shooting guard for the first 25 games because somebody couldn't keep the Glock in his pants. Anyways, Desmond Bain is going to move past Beal after this year because he is very young and a very good shooter. He actually reminds me of a young Beal if he was a muscular T Rex. But, anyways, Bain is going to have a great year next year. I feel like I'd be overrating Josh Giddey by putting him in the top 10, but I would have to put him at 10 if it wasn't for DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray is going to be very underrated as long as he plays with Trae Young. In the first round against Boston, before he had the 1 game suspension, he was honestly the best player for Atlanta. He also made me a lot of money by betting 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists in his stat line. That is not gambling advice. That is just me pointing out the fact that he is very diverse offensively and he can play make, he can rebound, and he can score. But he did make me a lot of money by doing that. And he's also a great defender. Don't sleep on DeJounte. There is a reason Atlanta traded 3 first-round picks for him. Don't be shocked when he proves that he is elite next year. My honorable mention is CJ McCollum because this will probably be the last year that CJ is officially considered a shooting guard. He's still a mid-range maestro or whatever maestro badge they had in 2K20. That's the last 2K I've ever played, but we're going to be streaming 2K24 when it comes out. Don't you even worry. Anyways, McCollum has started transitioning into a point guard since going to New Orleans, but he's still listed as a shooting guard, so I wanted to give him an honorable mention. I'm gonna keep it a buck, I just wanted to mention him, and he wasn't really better than a lot of the PGs I left off in my last video, so go watch it if you haven't, because I do like McCollum, and it's probably last year he'll make any of the top 10 list. And that concludes my top 10 most overrated players. Nah, I'm just playing. Top 10 shooting guards. I do think a lot of these guys are good basketball players, and I do think they're great players. Don't get me wrong. It's just a joke. Just a joke. But yes, this is probably the worst position in the NBA. But I also know that y'all are going to want to know more about the Jaylen Brown stuff and are going to comment about it. I don't care who you have at 6, whether it be Brown or Levine. I just didn't want to not mention Levine there because I do think he's very underrated. And I think Brown does have a lot of struggles that really affect him. So that's just my basis for that. But small forwards video is going to be dropping soon, as soon as I make it. But we about to be cooking up some more bold takes. Nah, I'm just kidding. This video is definitely way more bold than the point guards one. If you didn't go watch it, go watch that one. That is all from me today. Have a good one. Bye.